Hello gaming enthusiasts, my name is James, and now as gamers we've gained somewhat of a stigma for becoming a little too passionate about our games, and the media is never afraid to slam us for becoming addicted to all of the glorious pixels the gaming world has to offer. But some games just leap out and take hold of us, and it's pretty easy to get hooked. Now in today's list I will be breaking down 5 games that have caused addiction, even if it was for a short amount of time. Now before we jump in, huge games such as Skyrim and Fallout have never been able to hook me in for some reason, but I know there are plenty of people who just can't stop playing these games. So with that out of the way, let's begin.
5.
So let's start with the first gaming series to ever hook me in. Pokemon. Now when invested into the game, Pokemon is a giant world filled with a variety of unique towns and characters to meet. There are hundreds of Pokemon to find and collect, and as a child with a very active imagination, the game was like stepping into a whole other world, and the more I played, the more I felt part of that world itself. So that does sound a little extreme, but it's really a great game with the ability to completely hook me in on gaming for life. So for those interested, my favourite game in the franchise was Pokemon Gold.
4.
So this may be the most disturbing game on this list, but it doesn't make it any less addicting. So I first got into The Binding of Isaac a few years ago when watching my friend play, and I became quite hooked on it. But when they actually released the remastered version called Binding of Isaac Rebirth, my addiction really began to take hold. Now at this time I would play all day on a computer, and when I had to go to work I would play on my PS Vita at work. Now that's true addiction right there. Now once I'd found almost everything in the game, I just stopped playing, but until that point I just couldn't put it down.
3.
So some of you may know that I quite like to play shooters on consoles rather than PC, and I totally understand that that's a sin. Now one game that I can't stop playing when I get hooked on, however, is Team Fortress 2. Unsurprisingly though, I didn't actually get hooked on this because of the competitiveness of matches, and rather the desire to keep collecting new vanity items for my character, which would usually drop when you'd played for a certain amount of time in the game. So I became absolutely hooked on Team Fortress 2, playing all day long in the hope of another pointless hat. Now as a counter to this, I've also become quite addicted to Overwatch for the PC, but considering it's in early days, I can't say how long this addiction will last for.
2.
Now arguably one of the most successful franchises is also the most addicting for me. So my addiction with Call of Duty takes a hold of me at least once a year around the launch of the first DLC pack for each game. This will cause me to get completely hooked on the game for around about a month, where I will non-stop play until I grow ever frustrated with the series and put it down for the year. The competitiveness of trying to claw up the leaderboard or the pace of each online match is enough to really sink me into it, but this addiction never lasts and all I feel is shame.
1.
Now without a doubt the most addicting game I've ever played is The Sims, and it doesn't actually matter which version I'm playing, although I do favour the first game and Sims 3 the most. I actually got hooked on this when I was quite young, and I find myself craving to start up a new sim and play through their entire life a few times throughout the year. To put this into perspective, I once played the game so much over a short period of time that I'd created a family of 7 generations and had built up enough money to build the biggest house the game had ever seen, and literally couldn't stop playing until the game files got corrupted and everything was lost. Now one game I get hooked on in the franchise, but not as much as the others, is the SNES version of SimCity, which is the simplest game in the franchise, but the nostalgic music and the warmth of it just keeps me coming back. So there is my list of my top 5 most addicting games for me. Now some franchises didn't make this list since I didn't keep my addiction for long enough to make it worthy of a list like this. So that's about it for today's top 5 list. If you like what I do and you'd like to see more, why not click that subscribe button? By clicking that button you'll have access to all of my content the moment it's released directly to your homepage. And if you'd like to see another top 5 list, click here to see my top 5 Game Boy Advance games. It's a great list and a good nostalgic trip for those who enjoyed playing on their GBA too. That's it for today's video, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.